The sun was beginning to melt into the horizon, spilling gold and tangerine across the sky as cars whizzed down Highway 41. On the side of the road, a sleek black Mercedes-Benz sat motionless, hazard lights blinking like a distress signal. Inside, Elena Drake, a 28-year-old tech millionaire, sat tapping the steering wheel, frustration bubbling beneath her polished exterior. She was beautiful in that quiet, effortless way. Dark hair pulled back in a bun, diamond studs glinting in the fading light, and an expression that suggested she was used to solving every problem, except this one. Her phone buzzed. No service. Of course, she muttered, glancing at the flat rear tire. She had never changed one before. Money had always solved things, until now. The sound of a bicycle chain broke her thoughts. A boy, maybe 17, pedaled toward her on an old mountain bike that looked 2 days away from collapsing. He slowed to a stop a few feet away. His clothes were dusty, his hands greasy, his smile genuine. "You okay, ma'am?" he asked, wiping his brow. She hesitated. "Flat tire and no signal." The boy grinned. "Lucky for you, I fix flats all the time, just not usually on cars that cost more than my entire block." She laughed despite herself. "You sure you know what you're doing?" He dropped his backpack to the ground and crouched beside the tire. "Yes, ma'am. My name's Caleb. My uncle runs a garage down the road. I help out after school." His confidence disarmed her. Watching him work, steady, efficient, quietly focused, Elena felt something unfamiliar. Respect, gratitude, maybe even humility. In 15 minutes, the tire was replaced. Caleb stood, wiping sweat from his forehead. "Good as new. You're all set." Elena blinked, impressed. "You're amazing. How much do I owe you?" He waved her off. "Nothing. You looked like you needed help, that's all." Her brows furrowed. "You won't even take a tip?" He smiled shyly. My grandma says kindness loses its shine when you start charging for it." For a long moment, their eyes met. The woman who had everything and the boy who had almost nothing, both standing in the golden dust of an evening that would change their lives. "Where do you live, Caleb?" she asked quietly. "Down by Pine Hollow, near the old water tower." She nodded. "You ever need anything, tools, supplies, come by Drake Industries." As for Elena, he gave a half smile. "I'll remember that." Then with a wave, he hopped on his bike and rode off into the fading light. Part 2. The ripple effect days passed, but Elena couldn't shake the memory of the boy with the grease-stained hands and the kind eyes. She'd met CEOs, investors, and innovators, but no one had spoken with that kind of sincerity in years. The next week, her company launched a new community initiative, Project Rebuild, designed to fund youth vocational programs. When her assistant asked where she'd gotten the idea, she just smiled. A month later, fate intervened again. Driving through Pine Hollow on her way to inspect a donated lot, she spotted a familiar face outside a rundown house. Caleb was kneeling beside a broken lawnmower, surrounded by 2 little kids who watched him like he was magic. She parked and got out. "Caleb!" He looked up surprised. "Miss Elena?" "You remember me," she said with a grin. He laughed. Hard to forget someone who drives a car worth more than the whole neighborhood. They talked about his life, his school, his dreams. He wanted to be a mechanical engineer, but college felt like a fantasy. "I'm just trying to keep the lights on and my brother in school," he said simply. Something tugged in Elena's chest. "If you had the chance, would you go to college?" Caleb blinked. In a heartbeat, that night Elena filled out a scholarship application in his name. She didn't tell him. It wasn't about gratitude. It was about faith. Part 3. The turn months later, Caleb received a letter. He ran all the way to Elena's office, heart pounding, tears already forming. "You," he gasped, waving the envelope. "You did this?" She smiled. "You earned it. I just opened the door." He looked down at the paper again. Full scholarship to the State Institute of Engineering. Caleb's life changed that day, but so did Elena's. She began spending weekends volunteering at community garages, learning from kids like Caleb who saw machines not as metal, but as possibility. The world she'd built in glass towers and stock portfolios suddenly felt hollow around Caleb. She found something she'd forgotten: purpose. Part 4. The heart-nose years passed. Caleb grew from a boy into a man, a brilliant one. His hands still carried the same calm confidence that had first caught her attention on that lonely highway. When he graduated, he didn't take a job in Silicon Valley or chase a high salary. Instead, he came home. He started a community repair shop called Second Chances, where underprivileged teens could learn trade skills for free. Elena helped fund it, but Caleb made it come alive. One evening, she visited the shop. Caleb stood under the dim light repairing a motorcycle, sleeves rolled up, grease streaked on his cheek. "Still fixing things," she said softly. He looked up, grinning. "Still breaking them, I see." She laughed, shaking her head. "You haven't changed." He grew serious. "Neither have you. You still care more than anyone I know." There was silence, thick, meaningful, charged. "Caleb," she whispered, "you changed me. You reminded me what success actually means." He took a step closer. "And you believed in me before anyone else did." The air felt electric. Then in that quiet workshop that smelled of oil and dreams, he kissed her, softly, reverently, as if afraid to disturb the moment. When they pulled apart, both were smiling. Part 5. The legacy years later, newspapers would tell their story like a fairy tale. From a flat tire to forever, the love story that began on a dusty road. But for Elena and Caleb, it was never about status or wealth. It was about connection, the spark between two souls who saw the best in each other when the world saw only difference. They married quietly in the same town where they first met. Instead of a lavish honeymoon, they used the money to build the Carter Drake Foundation, funding scholarships for kids who fixed instead of giving up. Every year, they drove that same highway together. Sometimes they stopped where it all began, by the faded mile marker where a broken tire once changed everything. Elena would rest her head on Caleb's shoulder and whisper, "You didn't just fix my tire. You fixed my heart," and he'd smile, holding her hand. Guess some repairs just take time. Epilogue, the road ahead, decades later. When people asked how a billionaire and a boy from the wrong side of town found forever, Elena would laugh and say, "Because kindness doesn't care about class. It just recognizes itself." And every time she said it, somewhere in the distance an engine hummed, steady, strong, alive, like the heartbeat of a story that began with a flat tire and ended with love. The years rolled forward, smooth as asphalt beneath summer wheels. Caleb and Elena had built a life from compassion, not convenience. But every road, no matter how beautiful, has its rough patches. After 5 years of marriage, their foundation had grown beyond their imagination. Hundreds of students had graduated from their vocational program. Second Chances had become a movement, a beacon for kids the world had forgotten. But with growth came scrutiny. One evening, Elena sat in her glass-walled office as storm clouds gathered above the city. Her assistant rushed in, a tablet trembling in her hands. "Ma'am, there's a news story about Caleb." The headline flashed across the screen. "From flat tire to fortune. Did Elena Drake's love story begin as charity?" Elena's stomach twisted. The article questioned everything: Caleb's scholarship, their marriage, even their motives. It painted their love as a transaction, not a miracle. She closed her eyes. The ache was sharp. When Caleb walked in an hour later, his face was calm, but his eyes weren't. "I saw it," he said softly. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "They don't understand." He took her hand. "They don't have to. You do." That night, as the rain drummed against the windows, they held each other in silence, two souls weathering another storm together. And in that silence, they remembered something Reaper-like from Wren's story. Kindness doesn't break under pressure. It refines. Part 7. The return year later. Second Chances was expanding again, this time into a forgotten town outside Atlanta. Caleb insisted on doing the opening himself. When he arrived, a familiar sound stopped him in his tracks, a soft hiss of air. Deflated tire on the roadside. He smiled. An older woman stood by her old Toyota, looking lost. He knelt beside her. "Need some help, ma'am?" She blinked, startled, then smiled gratefully. "Yes, please." "I don't have a spare." As he replaced her tire, she asked, Why are you doing this? Caleb chuckled. Because someone once did it for me. When he was done, the woman looked at him curiously. You remind me of someone. You wouldn't happen to be Caleb Carter, would you? He paused. Yes, ma'am, her eyes softened. You helped my nephew get into college. He said your program saved him. Caleb froze, heart swelling. What's his name? Tyrell, she said, smiling. Caleb grinned. Tell him I said keep fixing the world one thing at a time. The flame lives on back home. Elena was writing a letter to the next group of scholarship recipients. Her pen paused over the words. May you never forget that the smallest act of kindness can rewrite a lifetime. Caleb entered quietly, wrapping his arms around her shoulders. Still writing love letters to the world? She laughed softly. Someone has to. He kissed her temple. You know, I think we should drive out to Highway 41 again this weekend. She looked up. The place where it all started? He nodded. It's been 20 years. I think the road deserves a thank you. Part 9. Full circle. The sun dipped low as their old Mercedes glided along the familiar stretch of road. The same wind, the same fields, the same golden hue. Helena wore a scarf that fluttered out the window like a memory. Caleb's hands rested on the steering wheel, steady, sure. They stopped near the old mile marker. Helena stepped out, the breeze teasing her hair. She knelt, tracing the dusty ground. Right here, she whispered. This is where I learned what love really means. Caleb joined her, kneeling beside her. No, this is where we learned what humanity means. They stood together as the sun melted into the horizon. In the distance, a young man on a bicycle rode past, backpack slung over one shoulder, a grin on his face. He waved. Elena waved back, eyes glistening. Look at him, she said softly. That was you once, Caleb smiled. No, that's hope. It just keeps passing on. Part X, the final lesson years later. After Caleb passed peacefully at the age of 69, the foundation renamed its flagship building, the Carter Drake Center for Human Kindness. At the dedication ceremony, Elena, now older but still radiant, stood before a crowd of students, mechanics, mothers, and dreamers. She held the same wrench Caleb had used to fix her tire decades ago. She spoke slowly, voice thick with memory. The world tells you to chase success, but success without soul is noise. Kindness, quiet, inconvenient, unglamorous kindness, is what changes everything. My husband once fixed my tire, but what he really fixed was me. The audience stood in silence, some crying, some smiling, all changed, and when she stepped down, the building lights flickered to life, reflecting the words carved above the entrance, where broken things are mended, and love keeps the wheels turning. Epilogue at sunset. Elena returned to Highway 41 one last time. The air was still warm, the world quiet. She placed the old wrench by the roadside, kissed her fingertips and whispered, "Thank you, Caleb, for every mile." Then she smiled because she could almost hear it. The faint hum of an engine, the rhythm of a bicycle chain, and the echo of a young boy's laughter carried on the wind. And somewhere, kindness smiled back. 10 years after Caleb's passing, Elena still ran the Carter Drake Foundation, though her steps had slowed and her hair had turned silver. But her eyes, they still had that same fire. The same light Caleb had once seen in the reflection of a broken-down car window. Every morning, she would walk through the workshop where young mechanics worked with laughter and purpose. The sound of clanging metal and humming engines filled the air. But for Elena, it was music, the heartbeat of humanity. One morning, as she checked on a group of new trainees, a young boy approached her shyly. He couldn't have been more than 16, wearing a torn jacket and boots that had seen too many winters. "Ma'am," he said nervously, "they told me to ask for Miss Elena. I'm looking for work." "Or just a chance." She smiled softly. "What's your name, son?" "Malik," he said. "Malik Johnson. My mama said you help people who got nowhere else to go." Elena nodded slowly, eyes warm. "Your mama was right. Do you know how to fix engines?" He hesitated. "No, ma'am, but I can learn." Her smile deepened. It was exactly what Caleb had said all those years ago when he'd helped her. "You remind me of someone," she whispered. "Someone who believed in second chances." She handed him a set of gloves. "Welcome to the family, Malik. Part 13. A new beginning. Over the next few months, Malik flourished. He had a natural instinct for repair, the same patience and empathy that Caleb once had. He'd stay late, tuning engines by ear, humming softly, the same melody Caleb used to hum when he worked. One evening, Elena watched him from the doorway, tears welling up. The world truly had a way of sending pieces of the people we love back to us, just in different forms. When Malik noticed her watching, he smiled. "Everything okay, Miss Elena?" She nodded. "Yes, Malik, everything's perfect." Part 3. The anniversary ride. On the 20th anniversary of the foundation, a memorial ride was organized in Caleb's honor. Hundreds of motorcycles, cars, and bicycles gathered outside the city. People from every walk of life who had been touched by the Carter Drake legacy. Elena, though frail, insisted on leading the convoy in Caleb's old convertible. Malik sat beside her, proudly wearing his mechanic's jacket. As engines roared to life and the crowd began to move, Elena whispered to Malik, "Do you hear that?" He tilted his head. "What?" The sound of kindness moving forward. They drove through miles of golden fields, sunlight shimmering off the chrome, dust rising like memories. When they reached the old stretch of Highway 41, everyone stopped. Elena stepped out, her hands trembling slightly as she placed a small bronze plaque into the ground. It read, "In memory of Caleb Carter, the boy who stopped to help." The crowd fell silent. The only sound was the wind rustling through the grass. Elena looked up at the horizon and whispered, "We kept your promise, my love." The light didn't die. Part 14. The letter. That night, Malik found an envelope waiting for him on his workbench. It was from Elena. Inside was a handwritten note. "Dear Malik, there will come a day when you see someone stranded. Maybe on a roadside, maybe in life. When that day comes, stop, help them. Not because you expect anything in return, but because kindness is how we keep the world turning. This garage, this mission, it's yours now. Keep the flame alive. With love, Elena Carter Drake." Malik pressed the note to his heart, tears glistening in his eyes. Part 15. The cycle continues. Years passed. Elena's portrait now hung beside Caleb's in the main hall of the foundation. Underneath, the plaque read, "She taught the world to love louder." And one quiet afternoon, a young woman with a flat tire pulled over by the side of the same old highway. She looked around helplessly, until a motorcycle slowed beside her. The rider removed his helmet. It was Malik. "Need a hand?" "Ma'am?" he said with a grin. She smiled with relief. "Yes, thank you. I was starting to think I'd be here all day." As Malik knelt beside the tire, he whispered softly, "This road's got a special kind of magic. It's where kindness begins." The woman tilted her head, curious. "How do you know?" He looked up, eyes filled with warmth. "Because someone once helped someone here, and love never stopped traveling since." Final epilogue. The eternal road at sunset. The highway stretched endlessly, gold, endless, and forgiving. The same wind that once carried Caleb's laughter now swept through Malik's hair. The same sun that had shone on Elena's smile now painted the sky in hues of fire and peace. And somewhere, beyond the reach of sight or sound, two souls watched, proud, smiling. Forever together. Caleb turned to Elena and said, "Told you kindness would outlive us," she smiled back, touching his hand. "It didn't just outlive us, Caleb, it became us." The wind roared softly, like an engine, like a heartbeat, and the story of a boy, a woman, and a tire on a dusty highway became more than legend. It became proof that love is not found. It's built, bolt by bolt, act by act, heart by heart, because in the end, the world runs not on power or money, but on people who stop to help,